sitting the bench can be a drag. Athletes want to play, it's that simple. So sitting idly by while others do what you love can leave you feeling unimportant, underappreciated, maybe even unloved. So then there are those moments in the game so energizing, so electric, so intense that these idle players will spring to action. We've got a few of those moments here for you today as we take a look at some of the wildest bench reactions from the NBA. But first, if you love the heart-pumping content you see here, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a second of high-flying hoops action.
Kobe!
With an incredible play! I cannot believe Darren Williams tried to dunk it. 12th three-pointer of the game!
On a regular old April night in Indianapolis, the Pacers bench is chilled out, relaxed, maybe even daydreaming a little bit, but that will soon end thanks to Miles Turner, who throws down a putback dunk that brings the sleepy bench to their feet, like Braveheart heading into battle. What do you do when your team is up 123-94? You scored 34, and you're just waiting out the clock on the bench. And your name is LeBron James. Play the bottle flip game, of course. Just be careful how much distance you put on that Dasani, or you may find yourself needing to lay out for it. Shaquille O'Neal is just plain massive. He's larger than the average human, by a lot. He stands at 7'1" and weighs over 300 pounds. So if this guy comes flying at your bench, look out. Shaq's teammates on the Phoenix Suns had just recently witnessed him diving into the crowd a few nights ago. So they knew exactly what to do when a loose ball approached their sideline and O'Neal was in pursuit. Run for the hills. Sometimes you just need to dance. You know what I'm talking about? And to that I say, you can dance if you want to. Especially if you are the Brooklyn Nets taking it to the Detroit Pistons. You can leave your friends behind. We can always count on Tracy McGrady to give us our money's worth. And in this next play, he does not disappoint. Early on in this 2005 playoff game, T-Mac takes his Dallas defender baseline, rolls up and smokes Sean Bradley like a fine cigar, draws the foul, and slams the bucket home. His teammate watching from the bench, John Barry, is so overwhelmed that he falls to the ground and rolls onto the court. In this 1986 contest between the Lakers and Rockets, Hakeem Olajuwon and Mitch Kupchak, after having worn out their patience with each other, erupt into a fistfight. As the brawl makes its way toward the Lakers bench, John Lucas stands up from his chair and grabs Hakeem in a headlock from behind. In an effort that looks so coordinated that they had to have practiced it, the Lakers pile on Olajuwon before the Rockets bench arrives to defend their star player, who is now at the bottom of a heap of bodies. Glenn Rivers, better known as Doc Rivers, has made a name for himself as an NBA coach. But before that was a solid point guard for the Hawks, Knicks, Clippers, and the San Antonio Spurs. Doc's successes as a coach include being named Coach of the Year in 2000, an NBA title with the Celtics in 2008, and 2 appearances as a head coach in the All-Star Game. Here you see Doc getting fired up as his Clippers are deadlocked in overtime with the Brooklyn Nets. The esteemed coach is already displeased with his team for allowing the Nets to crawl their way back from the 18-point deficit. And after this play, he lets his frustration show, maybe a little too much, and he does appear to come quite a way out of the coach's box. But after it looks like he has calmed down, the official from the other end of the court calls a tee, and thus begin the fireworks. Doc loses it and goes full-on Captain Insano. Now, we're used to seeing players react from the bench either in elation, frustration, boredom, or to throw a few punches. But rarely do we see players leave the bench in order to restrain their own coach. But this is exactly what happens here, as an irate Doc Rivers gets tossed and is ready to maul the ref if his team doesn't hold him back. Speaking of coaches who needed restrained, check this clip of Chuck Daly charging the floor after Isaiah Thomas took an elbow to the face from Karl Malone. Thomas needed stitches, and Chuck needed a straitjacket to keep him away from Malone. Here's a bench reaction that involves both teams and both head coaches. This one takes you back to 1994 as the Bulls and the Knicks face off in Chicago. For one reason or another, Derek Harper and Stephen JoJo English began to tussle mid-court. Harper impressively hip-tosses English into the sideline, suggesting that he's done this before. Both benches clear, and in comes Bulls head coach Phil Jackson, who was almost immediately swept up in the mob and taken to the ground. After the fight breaks up, Knicks head coach Pat Riley is visibly disheveled and maybe even hurt, so we know he didn't miss out on the action. Comedian and actor Chris Rock got his start as a stand-up comic slogging it out in the comedy club trenches. Eventually, he became a cast member on Saturday Night Live and later starred in several movies including The Longest Yard and Grown Ups. His wildly funny comedy has become a mainstay in American entertainment, which famously got Michael Scott into a little trouble.
Every time black people want to have a good time, some ignorant ass just do it!
And when a celebrity makes it big, they're prone to use their status and riches to make appearances at NBA games. This is surely at least in part due to the fact that basketball allows its spectators to purchase seats practically on the court. So during the 2010 NBA Finals, Chris Rock finds himself sitting in between David Spade and the Lakers bench. We see him chatting it up on camera, and it can only be assumed that whatever he's saying must be gut-splittingly hilarious. But as the camera pans out to see that Rock's audience is none other than Lakers legend Kobe Bryant, and he is not laughing. Instead, he is sporting the most stoic, stone-faced, emotionless expression attainable within the scope of human expression. Just listening to Chris Rock tell this story is funny enough to get even the most humorless of us cracking up. So how in the world did Kobe keep a straight face?
Oh, the hell with him! I care about no Kobe Bryant.
Well, I hope that got you pumped up, laughing, cringing, and crying. I know I had my fair share of mutual emotions watching these plays. Make sure to give us a holler in the comments, and we'll see you next time, hopefully not from the bench.